we just jump in. Warning for everybody: there may be some inappropriate things that might be shared, or
Okay.
or guaranteed there's going to be things that are going to be offensive to you. So again, the rule in Voices of Integrity podcast for white males over 50, you're here at your own risk. Like you just are. We're just saying, we're giving
Okay.
you a warning. Um, it's interesting, Patrick, that Elaine and Mary Jo are both here. I'm like, are you both gonna be here? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, why?
Okay.
So I've got so much stuff I could go over today in our podcast, but what would you like to cover today, Patrick?
I would like to cover whatever you would like to cover. I think that usually ends up being pretty interesting to me.
So,
And I'm hoping that that's an interesting to whoever might be wanting to get on this thing.
right, like, how would you what would be one word if you were to describe me? What would be one word that would describe me?
Abnormal.
Right? Like, like I tell my wife, I'm like, honey, I'm normal. She's like, you are not normal. I'm like, I am, sweetheart. And she's like, yeah, no. So we argue back and forth. And eventually she's like, if that's helped you sleep at night, that's fine. And I said, well, no, honey. See, God created everybody to be like me. I'm just the only one living in the image and how I was created. Like, what?
Okay.
Um, so I don't know. Do we go into any, like Lou Costable comes to mind? And I met him, Tori Gum, president of vice president of Judson University. He invited me to go out to a Sox game with Lou and another guy and him. And and he went ahead and Tori went ahead and warned, and this happens a lot with people. Like they want me to meet people, but they don't. Mostly they don't, but there's some. It's almost like I'm a weird zoo animal. Like people, like I've never seen one of those before, Mom. Like, what is he? Anyways, um, so he goes ahead and we talk at the White Sox game. He goes home and he says to his wife, he says, I have met the most irritating guy, in the world. Like this guy's just an idiot. Don't like him. He's just says, really? And he's like, yeah. You just don't like him at all. And she's like, well, tell me about him. And so he tells, and she's like, oh, do you know why you don't like him? And he's like, no. And she's like, because he's just like you. And Lou's like, huh, yeah, that makes sense. I like him now. Like just like that. He also told me later, he's like, Mark, you have no foreplay. Like, and I'm like, excuse me? But I knew what he was talking. Like, we just get in down to business. Like, okay, this is what we have. And so what I try to do now is I try to have a little foreplay. I try to go ahead, like if we get into this one here, like the addicted to lazy. This is a new project that I'm working
Okay.
on. And it seems like, you know, what's the positive of not being motivated? And it's the ability it allows us to develop discipline.
Okay.
What if you say, oh, I don't really like that idea? You know, I don't really want discipline. I don't really like that idea. Well, that's a good indicator you're addicted to lazy. Questions? And Mary Jo and Elaine, it gets a lot more fun if you all participate, for sure. So if you guys have questions, like if you have questions, you can bring your questions up. Like I have questions for white males over 50. Like, what do you think about what do you think about the black community? Oh, bring that up. Or what do you think about women? Or what do you think about, ooh, this one? What do you think about President Trump? that'll, so you can bring up any controversial subject you want, and we're fine with that. Um, and then what's the cure for addiction to lazy? I think it's seeing the future. Now, sometimes I'm not around the smartest people in the world. What do you mean by that, Mark? Yeah, thanks for asking. Um, I have to talk to myself. Like, like, like now, Mary Jo, this is a shovel for you because Patrick, he, we were out on our deck and he's like, you just hit me with, two shovels. So he's a very sensitive kind of guy. And so he thinks that I'm kind of mean to people or him. I don't know what it is. So you got to see the future. So what does that mean? It's
I
like,
think the thing is you just don't have a filter.
well, this is why I say when you interact, it's a lot more fun because actually, believe it or not, Mary Jo, I filter 98% of I filter 100% of everything I say. It's a weird thing. It's not normal. I actually think about what I'm going to say before I say it. Like it was funny today, and I never know when people want me to repeat what they're saying or not. So the safest thing is not to give people credit for what they tell me. But I was playing pickleball today, and I've never had anybody say this to me. And this guy said to me, he's like, "So when you play pickleball, you use your brain." I'm like, hmm. Anyways, so yeah, I filter 100%, but I only allow probably 3% of what I'm thinking to escape my mouth, to go out. People think I'm abrasive or whatever. All I have to do is give them a little more perspective, and they will think that I'm not, because I have a lot that I don't say, a lot more that I don't say than what I do say. Anyways, go like if people saw the future, they wouldn't be lazy. Like, what do you mean by that, Mark? So sometimes I talk to myself because I like to talk to intelligent people. So I'll have a conversation with myself. And what are you laughing about?
I'm just enjoying the
Just
conversation that you're
happy.
having with yourself.
He's a
But
happy person
I'm
today.
a happy person. So, if you're watching this podcast and you're like, I don't know if Mark really has to go ahead and have anybody else on. He could just talk with himself the whole time. It's true, actually. I have great conversations with myself. And so I prefer when I put something out there, when I lay something down, somebody picks it up and says, Mark, what do you mean by that?
So
But I don't know.
why do you think that if somebody sees the future that they will necessarily change something about themselves?
See, it comes down to my like worldview.
And what would be
Okay.
your view?
So my worldview is right here. It's pretty interesting, don't you think? What's interesting, Mark? Um, I mean, who has their worldview that they've mapped out and they say, there's three worldviews essentially. One is fix me, then fix my family, fix the community, fix my country, fix the world. The worldview that is very prominent, and this was created 15 years ago, 2010. So the worldview is predominantly I'm fine, so fix everybody else. Like people aren't focused, so fix the world, fix my country, fix the community, fix myself last. I think it's a good worldview to fix yourself first. Like I think that's a good thing to say. Get the mote out of your own eye before you try to go ahead and get the splinter out of somebody else's eye. Like that's what I think. The third worldview is things are meant to be exactly as they are. There is nothing I can or should do about it. This is why zombie movies are so popular these days because there's a lot of people out there that relate to zombies, I think.
So here's my question to you. I understand your worldview and I understand the fix me, but what I don't understand is, you know, the tendency to uh, start with fix the world, and then I ask the question, why am I supposed to care about the world? And then I go up to the next one and I say, make that bigger so I can see it again. Okay. Then it says, fix my country. And then I'd say, am I really supposed to care about my country? That's outside of the sphere of my influence, as far as I'm concerned. And
So
I
I
go
want
up
to
again.
I want to give
Well,
Patrick credit here. So Patrick is teaching me how not to care. It's been a
right.
very powerful thing. Like he was helping two people that are important in my life. Both of them are very important, very, very important. Both of them are. And I said, how's it going with them? And he says, I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? He's like, I don't know. Like, do you care? He's like, no. And it was shocking to me. It was so cool. I'm like, I love the honesty. But as he delved into it and I delved into it, like he cares in a different way than other people care. So this might go deep really fast. Like when you're with white males over 50. Now, just to be clear, if there's any stupid people on, um, we're not saying 100% why are you all laughing? Like, I don't know. Like this is like Beth Smith, she's my therapist. Um, over in Europe. And it's the strangest thing because I've never met anybody in my life. People now it's a kind of a chick thing. It's kind of cool thing. It's like you're pretty. If you don't have a therapist, something's wrong with you. Like it's like, whoa, you have a therapist, especially over, I have somebody over in Europe. So that must make me like much more, I don't know, something. But Patrick, like I don't know. It seems like 80 to 90% of the people in my life don't believe that Beth is real.
Okay.
Have you ever met anybody that had a therapist where people didn't think the therapist was real?
Well, you're asking me why would somebody construct or create a therapist out of nothing? Why would you bother to do that? I agree with you. It's a throwaway question because they obviously look at you and say, well, obviously it must not be working. Okay.
Or see, I could take that as a shovel, but I don't. Like, I
Well,
just like I think, I think another possibility is they're like, well, you don't need a therapist. You're like perfect. You're a perfect husband. You're a perfect father. Like I can construct any type of world in my own mind. Other people do. So why don't I? That's what I think. Anyways, so on the addicted to lazy, you might be asking, I'm not connecting the dots. And fortunately for anybody that's on, anybody is involved in this podcast, if you're not connecting dots, every year I have a new theme. And this year is the connect the dots for the blank and blank. My wife said that I couldn't use ignorant and stupid, so I don't. I just say it's, connect the dots for the blank and the blank. And so just recently I came up with a definition for ignorant and stupid. Ignorant is not knowing what to do, and stupid is not doing what we know. It's pretty simple. It's not complicated, and so it's not complicated in what it is. So the addicted to lazy, like future, when we say the future, what's the future mean to all of you?
Well, the future to me is what is something that is not in the present and not in the past. That
Okay.
whatever's left over is the future.
Okay. Mary Jo, what's the future mean to you?
First thing that comes to mind is children.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. You're a young woman. Absolutely. You're engaged. I can see that. Elaine, um, and don't say having my children out of the house.
No, I was gonna say working towards something.
Okay. Yeah. So it's working. Any idea what the future is for me?
Well, you and I have kind of discussed the fact that I think you have a guardian angel. So I'm pretty confident you have a future. Just to reassure you of that.
So, do you know what I think of when, if somebody were to ask me, not that anybody would, but if somebody were to ask me, Mark, what's the future mean to you? So, you guys probably need a little bit of coaching too. When when a woman says to another woman, that's a beautiful blouse that you have. What are you supposed to say as a woman to the other woman? That's
All
Thank
depends
you
if
and
you
where
put
you
down
got
it.
it.
okay. You got to be interested. You might say, "Oh, that's a beautiful brooch you have on her." Something. You have to return the compliment. So when I show interest in all of you guys, um, you might want to show interest in me. So,
Okay.
so Mark, what's the future look like to you?
Mark, what's the future look like to you?
See, this is why Patrick is like one of my best friends. Some might say he's my only best friend. I don't know. And so because he's interested, you can tell it. He's very interested in me. It's after I die. That's the future.
Okay. Very
So
good.
so if you look at that, seeing the future with that definition, seeing the future with that definition, that makes a lot more sense, I think.
I do. I agree.
And so my dad was a pastor, so I was raised Christian, still go to a Baptist church. Most Baptists don't like me, and devout Christians don't, and pastors definitely don't. Show this to your pastor. He'll like it. He'll be very appreciative that I'm not in his congregation. Like, he'll be thankful. Like, if you're a problem in his congregation, show him this podcast because he'll be thankful that you're in the congregation more than me. Anyways, so I believe, that when we die, that there is a future, and that future is infinite. It's forever. And so I think that if people were to go ahead and see the future as I see the future, like, if you're a Christian, here's a great question. Can you go ahead and go to heaven if you're lazy? Most Christians would say, well, yeah, because they don't think very much. This is one of the things that irritates the white male over 50 a lot, is when people don't think. Especially when I thought of it when I was like 12 years old. Like, I'm like, what have you been thinking about for the last 20 years or whatever? And so I think if they saw the future as I saw the future, they would not want to be lazy. They would break the addiction to lazy. But if they don't see the future, they're going to be lazy. They just are.
That is pretty interesting. Okay. So, in that vein, knowing that we're both two white males over 50, recall I telling you that when I had my sons and they were younger, they would generally do something, and they would do something that was destructive, unintelligent, or just something that I was very annoying. So I would ask them, "Why did you do that?" And then they would always start out with, "I thought," and then I would interrupt them immediately and say, "Do not accuse yourself of thinking, because obviously that's not true at all. So start again." So you can imagine how that kind of went. But I always did that, and I think that's a pretty. Wouldn't you agree, Mark, that that kind of encapsulates what a white man over 50 might do?
Well, that's the thing. And so, the thing that's frustrating to me is like Ed Kirch, he said to me, I don't know what it was. It was probably 10 years ago. He said, Mark, you got to stop vaporizing people. I'm like,
Huh.
actually, I don't. He says, you do. And we argued back and forth. I'm like, I don't have to. And he's like, it's killing your business. And I
Huh.
said, well, I don't care. like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm just tired of stupid people. And he went
Okay.
ahead and said, well, it's killing my business. And he was a friend and a client, so I had to care.
Okay.
Then what I did is I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the year of caring. I did the
So
year
how
of
did that go?
no, I'm sorry, no, that wasn't the year of caring. That was 2020. It was probably it was 6 years before that. It was the year of not vaporizing anybody.
Okay.
I
So
wrote,
how
I
did the
wrote.
I'm interested in the year of caring because we just talked about that. So how did that go?
Well, my son died,
Well, okay. Okay.
so pretty well, I guess. No, when you have really tragic things happen, you get a weird sense of humor. You have to. You just have to laugh about it. No, our oldest son died. It's 5 years ago, June 17th. Is the 5 year anniversary. It was crazy. But that was the year of caring. And it was especially hard. It was especially hard because people, when your son dies and he committed suicide, gunshot to the head, and my 19-year-old son was in the room 5 feet away from him. So, really, just a hard situation. And people are stupid. I mean, they're just stupid. When that kind of stuff happens, you're like, don't ask me what I mean by that. Just don't don't ask for any examples. Just don't do it.
Okay. Are you sure you don't want me to? Because we
Are
just
you
went over this. If you're interested, you want to know, and I'm interested, so I kind of want to know. I was just
well
curious.
then just ask.
Well, that's what I mean. You said don't ask, but I want to ask. So I'm
When do you listen to me? Like like so my brother, bless his heart, my oldest brother, he's a CPA. That just kind of explains everything.
okay. I can see that, by the way.
Yeah. And so like I don't know, a week or two after he died, and he calls me up and he's like, "Hey Mark, we're really concerned for you. Is there anything we can do to help?" Like, no, we're fine. Like, no, I really want to help. Don't want to make things worse, and but want to help. And he asked me 3 times. Well, there was a young woman that had some. She was a single mom and having a really tough time, and so we were helping her out and everything, and then spiritually we were helping her out and stuff. And I said to him, I said, well, I mean, I've had a hard time, connecting with Amber. And, so yeah, if you or your wife or somebody, could touch base with her and just, I don't know, once a week, call her, just check on her, help her out, make sure, on the spiritual side, if there's things that she has questions about, you could help her with that. And he's like, Mark, you don't know what's going on in my life. And I had this face just like this. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I thought like he had cancer or his wife was going to die of cancer. Like I'm like, it's 2 weeks after my son commits suicide. It's a pretty big event, a lot of messy stuff going on, but okay. Like he asked me to give him, I mean, it'd take him 5 minutes to do. Like it's not brain surgery. This is not a big ask. And it's like,
Right.
so, I'm like, I felt bad. I'm like, okay. He's like, yeah, you don't understand. You don't know what's going on in my life. I'm like, okay, what's going on in your life? He's like, I've got tax deadline.
Huh.
And
Well, that's important, right? You're
I
thinking to
hadn't
yourself,
even
that's
thought of it.
important.
I hadn't even thought of it because it's June. It's after June 17th. So it's not even before April 5th. So it must have been an extension. So he had an extension. And it was just weird to me. And that's the kind of stupid things, like people just say stupid stuff. So in the year of caring, there's only one thing that I did that was uncaring.
And what was that?
I said something that Melissa, our daughter, took as derogatory about women.
I'm not usually fond of sarcasm, but sometimes it seems to be kind of appropriate. And I
Yeah,
would say, I cannot comprehend you saying something that is derogatory toward women.
right.
And
That's what
that
I
would
said.
be, I think, sarcasm. So, so what did you say?
I don't remember. I think I said, "Oh, probably there was some reason or something that a woman gave," and I'm like, "Oh, well, she's a woman, so she has a reason," and that was uncaring. She said it was. Anyways, going back to Ed Kirch, he said you can't vaporize people.
Okay.
And so it's the year about not vaporizing people. I dropped 3 white males over 50 just like that. I'm like, I'm not going to vaporize anybody. But in the next week, I dropped 3 white males over 50. They're so freaking sensitive. It's insane.
So
You
you
got
think
to,
that in do you think in general that white males over 50 are sensitive as a group, or do you think you just happen to find 3 in your sphere that were sensitive?
I think a lot of them are wusses. I think a lot of them are entitled. I think, I think, like,
Okay,
like I
I'm
would
okay with
think
that.
I would think
So,
that the white male over 50 has gotten beat up so bad that they would not care. Like, I'm a white male over 50. Why does everybody hate me and why don't I care? Like, when but it's like when I say something about the white male over 50, it seems like a number of white males over 50 kind of take offense to it. It's like, okay. Um,
really?
yeah.
Well, I mean, so I know that you've
Well, let's go
felt
ahead and go to
expressed.
part 2. Let's go to part 2. If you think part 1 was boring, yeah, part 2 will be infinitely more boring than part 1. So here we go in part 2. It'll be a lot
Okay.
more boring. Here we go.